Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new spoiler-free review, and today I'm going to be talking about the Fantastic Four First Steps, which is out in cinemas in the UK this Thursday and America this Friday, and what may be one of the biggest films of the year, the 37th entry in the MCU, and I guess we can say the final Marvel film in the lead up to Avengers Doomsday, which comes out in only 17 months. And I'm very excited to be talking about this one. I've just got home from a screening at the BFI IMAX in London today. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the film, what I thought about it, the screening, the build-up to it, and so much more. So, as always, I do want to hear from people at home, so please do comment your thoughts on Fantastic Four, what you're looking forward to seeing about it, things that you're excited for, maybe things you're nervous about. I hope this may help you in forming an opinion to go watch the film. This is a film I've been very curious about seeing myself, so please do comment. And if you want to find out about other videos, what else we're posting, what else we're working on, get us on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and Blue Sky, all of which are links in the description below. But yeah, let's get talking Fantastic Four, because I've also been building up to this review. We've got obviously a spoiler discussion coming live this Sunday, and I revisited the 05 one and the 07 one because I had memories of them. I grew up with them. I wanted to revisit them in the lead up to the new one because, truth be told, is Marvel's been in dire need of Fantastic Four, if I'm allowed to say that. This isn't me giving an opinion on the current state of the MCU, but I think Marvel's been in need of some creative differences, some stronger visions from directors involved in those productions, and I think this is the film Marvel has needed. Going off the back of Thunderbolts, by the way, which I absolutely loved, which we know hasn't performed as much as it deserved to financially, which goes to say a lot about the current audience and people that are interested and invested. So Fantastic Four, I think, is going to be the big hit they really want, the big hit they really need, and I can safely say I very much enjoyed this film, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it too. So let's talk about my background. This obviously has been a long time in production. We know there was the merger with Fox that absorbed the Fantastic Four rights, and to Marvel's credit, and I will say this, they have not rushed making the Fantastic Four film. You might have thought they'd have just done it as soon as possible to get it going, but they really haven't. They've waited and they've waited. I think they've released it at the best time. I'll get into the cast later, but if this film had come out a year or two ago, this doesn't have maybe two or three of the lead actors in this. So it's quite contextual, I feel, to 2025, which is great with regards to casting and who is going to be one of some of the biggest stars maybe of the next 5-10 years. So I think they've needed this. There's a lot of TV, there's a lot of stuff going on. To release a standalone Marvel film that is set in a different universe, we know they're going to be part of Marvel moving forward with the Thunderbolts credit scene, but this is very much anyone can come and watch this film. And I think they need it. And Fantastic Four is obviously one of the most famous comic properties there's ever been. The first family, as they're called by so many. And when the trailers and the marketing started going up for this, and we started to see that, there's going to be a retro-futuristic vibe. Everyone was talking about the 60s, but as times got nearer and nearer, in my opinion, there's no date in the film. But I do feel like just this is a different Earth that may be set concurrently, not set in the 60s in a different Earth. This may actually be present day, set in another Earth, just a different Marvel universe. So there's a lot to look into with that. Maybe we'll talk about that heavily in the spoiler discussion, but I've been optimistic for this. I really want this one to be good. We're having a really good summer blockbuster season. I loved Superman. I loved Jurassic Park. It's been a really solid, good few months for films, which we've got to appreciate, and this feels like the last big one for a couple of months. And when I talk about a big thing with this for me was bringing on board Matt Shakman, who was involved in WandaVision, a series I really did enjoy. That was incredibly unique, very different to what we had. And many will say it is the best of the Marvel TV series, which is a very fair opinion to have. I was delighted at the chance for him to move forward as a director to see what he would be able to do in the chair and the approach he's tucked us. And I can say this off the bat, this is probably one of the most stylish MCU films. It feels like there's a consistent creative direction for this. When you're looking at the costume, you're looking at the props, you're looking at the production design and so many other things, it feels like a brand new universe that we get to explore. It doesn't feel like, hey, there's another Earth and it's just got some superheroes in it and not all of them. It actually feels like this is how this universe has become a thing. This is how these people, this is the technology that's developed. It is that retrofuturism, and it works so well, and you just have to credit the director for that. And I'm going to credit the producers as well for allowing that to be done, to bring this to its basics. There's obviously the interview with Kevin Feige this week where he spoke a lot about, maybe you could argue, call it lessons learned or lessons they need. And at the same time, you've got Superman performing so well, and competition breeds competition, and it's great that we might be able to get back to a time where we've got great Marvel and DC films in production at the same time. Who knows? But it's been a very good few weeks for both of these companies. And then you get the casts. And I'm being very coy about the story in this one because Marvel released a scene 2 weeks ago, which I think was a bit much with regards to the plot and focus and motive of certain characters. I really was disappointed they revealed this, and the film itself is heavily centered around that. So I've got to give the marketing team props for almost hiding the story until a couple of weeks before the film came out. We obviously know that Sue Storm is pregnant in all the marketing. We've seen that she's obviously, it's in the trailers. We know it's going to be a big part of it. But where they choose to do so and move it forward is different. But what I enjoy about this film is this isn't your typical superhero, here's a dastardly villain, let's go stop him together. At the forefront of this film, it is a family drama. And not drama in the way of there's dramatic goings on and they're all at each other. Nothing like that. It feels like we're being, I don't want to call it like a documentary, but it feels like, hey, we're spending time with Marvel's first family. You know, I'm not trying to be cringy with the nickname for it, but that's what they are. And we're going to see them grow. We're going to see them from, you know, the infancy of not necessarily getting their powers, because this is set multiple years after, but we get to see how their relationships have developed and formed, and how they are today, how they are dealing with the success and what they have done for the world. I've really liked that angle, and I think it's where the film really does excel, and it's because they've been allowed to approach this somewhat differently to the other films. And by having the story about the family, not, you know, don't want to harp on the old ones too much, but theirs is like mustache twirling Victor Von Doom, we got to stop him, and that's how we're a thing because we're together through all this together. And it doesn't really make any sense in those films, but in this one, it's like, yeah, like they're a team, they're a family, there's a dynamic, they each know what they're doing, they've got their own protocols in place, how they go about doing things, and sometimes seeing is believing. And some of the trickiest characters to get on screen are the genius scientists. You know, Reed Richards is one of the smartest people within the MCU, one of the smartest characters in comic lore. How do you say someone's smart? Not by telling you they're smart, because then that just creates a weird paradox. What you want is to show it. And we get this really well done throughout the film that we know Reed is a smart individual, but we get to see his intelligence, we get to see his approach to missions, to see the scientist within him really come through, at times at the expense of his family work. And I liked that dynamic, and I thought Pedro Pascal did very well as the role of Reed Richards. But I've got to talk about Vanessa Kirby, who was incredible in this film. I absolutely loved her in this. I was very lucky to be in the Q&A the other day. She spoke about her favourite scene in the film being the scene in which she gives birth. It's not a spoiler to say, that's absolutely fine saying this. It's obviously in the trailers and stuff. But I thought her performance was incredible. And by the time you get to the ending, you love all four of these characters. You love the performances from the actors. But I think you'll finish this film thinking, not Vanessa Kirby stole it, but you'll be thinking, wow, like Sue Storm, what an absolute, I don't want to say the word mother because that's going to be copyrighted by someone else, but I thought she's incredible in this, and Vanessa Kirby has got to be given her dues. I think she's the best performance in this film, and that's not anything in regards to saying anyone else is bad. We've got Joseph Quinn playing the Human Torch, who is very good in this film as well. I loved him in this. I know, obviously, he's absolutely flying at the moment, no pun intended, with this film. You know, you look at him when he broke through big time on Stranger Things. He's been in films such as Warfare. He's going to be in the Beatles. His career is absolutely astronomical. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that some of these actors might not have been cast 3 years ago, if the film had come out then. But it is. And again, the chemistry of the family is what makes this film. If there's awkwardness with the performers and something isn't gelling, then it isn't going to work. and they really nailed that dynamic relationship with them all. They do feel like a brother and sister. And then we've got the relationship with the Thing, which is motion captured by Eben Bachrach, who I absolutely love, who most people know from The Bear. He's been in Andor, he's been in so many things already. He's also great in this, and the beautiful thing is I can pinpoint every actor and I can talk about their chemistry with one another. And the reality of this is that the 4 actors just have great chemistry with one another, and it is why the film functions. If that chemistry doesn't work, if the director's vision doesn't work, then this film fails, and it absolutely does not fail. It is so rewarding in that sense, and I believed them as being both a family and being both a successful group of superheroes. And we get to see that by having their biggest test yet, which is Galactus, played by Ralph Ineson, who most people may know as Finchy from the UK Office, which is just amazing to continuously see him. Okay, I know he's done so much more than The Office, but he'd always be Chris Finch to many. And Galactus is something I was very nervous about heading into this film, if I'm totally honest. There's a great many comic book characters who work on comic book panels, same for storylines. They work on panels, they work as comics, but you can transition that to live action, you can transition that into a film, and it does not work. I was very fearful of Galactus being in that, and when he was announced for this, when you get the credits of Thunderbolts, I was sat there like, how are you going to do a character like Galactus justice? How do you do that in one film? He's not going to be a big part of a Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. I mean, Doctor Doom's going to be entering that stage. I was like, how do you do Galactus in a one and done in a brand new universe too? And I think they pulled it off. There's not much to him in regards to character development or depth, but I loved the design. I loved seeing him function on screen. How Matt Shakman shot the scale on this was very reminiscent of someone like a Gareth Edwards. And I don't think some directors could really struggle at doing that, just making it look big. But you get a sense through the environments, through the performances and the cinematography of how big this individual is, and choosing to use the IMAX just looked superb on so many of Galactus sequences. I really enjoyed seeing him on screen, and I'm glad they were to bring him on board. It's probably the best you could ever do at putting him in as a villain. You know, he's not going to be a top tier villain people speak about, respectively, like a Thanos or anything like that. But it was a great way to bring him in, and he was still and end up being a very, very credible threat for these characters, for these group of heroes, which is what it should be. So I'm glad that happened. Maybe he'll pop up again in the future. Maybe he never will. I do not know any plans or intentions, but I love Ralph Ineson, so I'm never going to say no to that. And it's kind of where I'm going with this. I've been very glowing and very positive on this, and this is a spoiler-free review. This is almost a character in itself. We have to talk about Michael Giacchino's score. Michael Giacchino is one of the greatest composers working today. So many have dubbed him the next John Williams. People talk about the fact that he won an Oscar for the first 10 minutes of Up, which is a massive, massive achievement, because it is one of those films, one of those openings that many people can just cry on command. I've been very fortunate in seeing him live multiple times at the Albert Hall. He's one of my favourite composers. He's obviously scored so much of the MCU already. He's in the intro, he's in the Spider-Man films, he's in Doctor Strange films. He's even directed his TV special, which I really enjoyed. And a couple of months ago, I was lucky to be able to see, listen to a song of his from the score. He was at an event in London and he played it live because they'd been recording at Abbey Studio. So we got to hear the soundtrack. And there is something about this that feels like an extra character. It doesn't feel like a cookie cutter. I've heard this theme before. I've heard this score before. This sounds like a generic superhero thing, which some Marvel films have struggled with. This soundtrack is amazing. And the fact that he can continue to do these scores for multiple combat characters, all of them having their own, I guess you could say, audio personality, combined with the fact we are seeing them on screen. Everyone's been doing jokes and chanting about the Fantastic Four stuff. Really did help to elevate this film to another level. It made it stand out by itself, and it feels like a character for that. So superb from me. They released it online a week early, which is wild that films keep doing that. And I loved listening to it on the train home, having seen the film. Don't look at the score if you haven't seen the film. There could be some minor spoilers in that, especially Qui-Gon's noble end. But this is amazing, and I don't talk about this too much. I want to see this nominated for Best Score at the Oscars. I don't know if it will, but I adore this score, and I really like the creative approach to it. And it's kind of where I feel like with this film, I've been very glowing on this film, and I really did enjoy it. It's a solid film. This isn't, top tier Marvel or anything like that. This is a very good superhero film. This is a good blockbuster, and I'm not going to compare it to other genres, other things, but it functions as what it needs to be as a Fantastic Four film. And I think what this does, it lays the groundwork to develop the characters a little bit more in the future. Whether they do that in their own films, there's murmurs of the Fantastic Four 2 being set up very quickly. We know they're going to obviously appear in Doomsday, and I'm guessing Secret Wars from this point. I'm excited to see what comes from them for this. I would love to see Matt Shakman stay on board with the characters. I don't have any glaring negatives. At this point in time, I came out of this very excited, and I enjoyed my time watching it. I was cautiously optimistic going in. And I don't want to compare it to Superman in that regard because they're two completely different films, but it's great that we have this variety with what is showing at the cinemas at the moment. You can chuck in your dinosaur films as well and so many others. A real great time to be a fan of cinema, a great time to be a fan of Marvel, and I'm very excited about talking about this film a little bit more on Sunday. So that is me rounding out. I hope you've all enjoyed this. As I said, we're live on Sunday with a spoiler discussion. We'll have a lot more videos up on the channel. There's a lot of things obviously we're planning on at the moment as we head into the second half of the year, but I was excited and delighted that this film not being a disappointment, because it would have been a sour way for this summer blockbuster season to have rounded out. So that is everything from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll join you on the next one. Take care.